Before I begin, these are prescription sunglasses, so I am not blind. Because I am going to read something, and you're hearing music in the background, and it's I need my other glasses on. Coffee House Radio on uh I love Frank Sinatra. I love that music. I love the 70s. I love all that. But I get sick and tired of hearing it myself all the time. So I will listen to mainstream music every now and then just to give my ears something else to listen to. And although I'm not crazy about this music, it's just something different for me to hear so I don't have to hear music over and over again. Anyway, this video is about learning about hipster culture. This is in the description box below if you want to read it yourself. But anyway, so the reason why I'm doing this video is basically because I don't fit into my generation, really. The music I'm into, jazz music specifically, like jazz standards and all that. Don't get me wrong, I love Elvis Presley. I love early rock and roll too. But jazz music is something I have a deep connection with. And it's something that you don't see most millennials have an appreciation towards. You see most millennials sweep jazz music under the rug as too old and too that. And I don't see jazz as outdated. I see jazz as something that should still be appreciated. But anyway, the reason why this also too is because someone I know told me that that a crowd I would feel comfortable in would be a rare type of hipster. But let's see. Let's find out. This is the origin of the hipster. This is about the hipster culture. Introduction. What do you think of when you hear the word hipster? Beards, mismatched vintage clothes, and anything not ordinary? A hipster might say that definitions are too mainstream, but they can't be defined because they don't fit into a category ago. No, definitions are not mainstream. Definitions are definitions. Definitions exist for a reason. How can you say definitions are mainstream? Tell me. What makes a definition so mainstream? Water. A liquid combined to the combination hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen. The combination that makes up water. That's not a mainstream definition. That's just the definition of water. I wouldn't. Little things like that bug me. Okay, little things like that bug me. Definitions are not mainstream. They're definitions. Typically, hipsters are the intelligent, creative type, men and women in their 20s and or 30s that value independent thinking and have an appreciation of art and alternative music. You will usually find them living in urban areas, shopping at thrift stores, then looking in a mirror, perfecting their stash. Well, the male hipsters, at least. There are a lot of different elements that have come together to create the modern hipster, a collision. I was about to say collusion. A collision of multicultural influences, indie music, progressive politics, and art. It may surprise you that hipsters first appeared decades ago, and the culture has developed over time, redefining the word into the hipster we know today. Let's start with a history lesson and take a look into what this subculture developed. Okay, first thing I want to point out, intelligent creative type is really a subjective way of phrasing it, because when you say intelligent, that's subjective. What are you talking about when it comes to intelligent? Everyone is smart and dumb at a specific topic. So I'm dumb when it comes to cars. I know jack shit about car mechanics. So if I'm driving, and when I get my license, hopefully sometime, when I you know when I if I drive on the road and my car breaks down, I'm gonna call a tow truck to pick me up, and I'm gonna be taken to my car dealership because I know jack shit about the functions of a car. I don't know what goes into how a car works. I know about the steering wheel, I know about the gas pedal and the brake pedal, but that's about it. Other than that, I know nothing really about how to fix a car. So I'm dumb in that area, but I'm intelligent in the area of music. I'm intelligent in the area of classical, jazz, early rock and roll, classic rock, power music, you name it. I know loosely a little bit about modern music. I know loosely about 90s music, but music is an intelligent category for me. A dumb category for me is car mechanic. So I wouldn't say intelligent creative types. I would just say creative types. Intelligence, a subjective word to use. It's a word to use loosely. You can't just pass intelligent all the time. You have to use it as a loose word because not everybody is intelligent all the time. So I would say hipsters are creative types. Okay. Men and women in their 20s that value independent thinking and have an appreciation of art and alternative music. Okay, I do have an appreciation of art, that's for sure. I don't find people taking tin foil and splattering paint on it and calling it art. To me, that's garbage. That ain't art. I do have an appreciation for art, though. If somebody can paint me a modern day Rembrandt, props. If someone can paint me a modern day Da Vinci or a modern day, what's the word I'm looking for? Michelangelo, props. I will give you props because I appreciate that art. I really do. I appreciate Renaissance art. I really appreciate that type of art because there's a lot of depictions into it. And hell, even if you could show me an Andy Warhol style painting, I will give you props there. Alternative music. Okay. I use alternative loosely as well because what starts off as alternative then becomes mainstream, and once again, mainstream music I don't listen to. I normally listen to what people define as oldies or retirement village music. I listen to that more often than anything. But yeah, I'll listen to alternative music, but specific alternative music. I won't listen to all kinds of alternative. You will usually find them living in urban areas, shopping in thrift stores. Yes, I do this. I do shop at thrift stores. When I had when my VHS player was working before it got fried, I went to the thrift store and got a lot of VHSs. True. I went to the thrift store and bought a roll of film. The something of a it'll come to mind, but I have it in my coffee table. Yeah. I do like thrift stores because you can find clothing there that is either vintage or my favorite, so retro you have to get it for the comical effect. I bought a shirt from my local Salvation Army that says Ross for boss. A Ross Perot shirt. I had to buy it for the sheer fact that you're not going to find that anywhere else, let's be honest. And looking in the mirror, perfecting their mustache. Okay. I don't have a problem with facial hair on men. I have a pencil mustache as we speak. You can't see it really because of all the lighting, because it really is like thin in color when it starts growing out, but red facial hair. It does look like my hair color. But I do have a pencil mustache. But here's my problem. If you're spending all day in the mirror perfecting your mustache, you are a little bit of a pretentious human being. You're a little bit more narcissistic, in my opinion. Because, look, one hair is out of place, whatever. You feel what the other side is like and just finger the other. Just do that. You don't need to be in the mirror all goddamn day. You're not that gorgeous, okay? No one is. A collision of multicultural influences. Well, that a collision of multicultural influences and differences, you know, that's just American culture and values. So I wouldn't say American culture is hipster. I would just say that goes into what America is. America is a melting pot. So I wouldn't say, you know, that's part of hipster culture. Indie music, once again, I think that's really subjective because I think anyway that's subjective because, you know, anybody can listen to indie music and not be a hipster. Progressive politics and art. This is where I differ from hipster culture. I'm a libertarian. I'm a libertarian centrist, really, but here's the thing. A lot of the things I say I'm socially liberal on are really more conservative positions now than ever before. Like freedom of speech used to be a very liberal position. Now it's become a conservative one. I mentioned that in a video I did on this channel a couple of days ago. So, you know, maybe independent politics and art would be more like it if I would label myself a quote unquote hipster. But progressive art, I do watch a lot of movies that are right-leaning, left-leaning, and in the center. Woody Allen films are very left-leaning. I do love Woody Allen movies. I will watch documentaries. Those are very centered because you can't really have a political affiliation when you're doing a documentary. You're doing a disservice to American history at that point. And I do watch right-leaning films. I do watch a lot of John Wayne films. I do like to watch a lot of Westerns. And they're set in what people today call chauvinistic societies. I do watch Gone with the Wind, which I would consider to be more of a right-leaning film, a centrist film, because it is based during the Civil War, and there's no specific which side it's more sympathetic to, even though it is set in the Old South. So, yeah, I would consider Gone with the Wind more right-leaning, but I do love Gone with the Wind too. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So anyway, I differ with the progressive politics in art. So anyway, where did the term hipster come from? The word hipster was first used back in the 1940s. It used to describe a particular subculture that evolved in America during which and directly linked to the popularity of jazz music during the 1940s. So we're talking about World War II era. There are different opinions on how the word actually came about. The most common one is the word hipster, the word hip meaning in the know, and was commonly used as an adjective to describe enthusiasts of the jazz music scene. The English suffix "stir" was added to the term hipster, was born, being defined as, quote, characters who like hot jazz. So the 40s hipster, or the youth of the 1940s, were pro jazz music, pro integration music. That's what jazz music really was. It was integration music. Okay, that the term for 40s hipsters, that makes sense. Initially, hipsters were middle-class white American youths. And I'll get this right. Initially, hipsters were middle-class white American youths. My cousin Vinny language here. Youths. I can't say youths, right? Youths. During a time of war, resistance, and racial segregation, groups of middle-class white youths rejected the social norms of the time and the extravagant lifestyles of the higher classes, seeking more of a carefree and spontaneous lifestyle. Okay, so the early 1940s hipsters were against the conservative society, which was, go to work, get married, and all that. Okay, that makes sense why they would be against that. We're also against the social norms, so you could say that the second wave of feminism really started in the 1940s instead of the 1970s, because I guess this is when girls really started to form their own culture and start their own women's rights groups in their schools, like after school programs. So you could probably say that feminism's second wave really started in the 1940s. And the extravagant lifestyles of the higher classes. Okay. For those of you who aren't into World War II history, when they say extravagant lifestyles of the higher classes, they mean the radio show stars, like George Burns and Gracie Allen, Jack Benny, who else? People like them. Mainly the big radio stars of the day. When they say extravagant lifestyles, they mean the radio stars. Anyway, they embraced jazz music and the culture that came with it. Jazz musicians were predominantly African American, and these middle-class white youths looked to imitate the lifestyle of the musicians they looked up to, along with young urban blacks. Jazz clubs were these hipster groups went to socialize, leading to a fusion of races in hipster culture. Okay. Interesting, but let's be honest. Yes, it's true that predominantly jazz musicians were predominantly African Americans, originally from the 1920s to, I would say, the early 40s. But you get to the mid 40s, and then you really start to see Benny Goodman having the first integrated jazz band, and you start to see white culture really start to get into jazz music and embracing it. So by the time the mid 40s came along, it was really an integrated jazz style of music. But Benny Goodman, keep in mind, Benny Goodman was the first jazz director to have a integrated jazz band. These young people were focused on enjoying life, and differentiating themselves from the upper class and their orderly way of life, adopting opposite views of life from what was expected. They used cannabis and other drugs, embracing a relaxed attitude to life, sarcastic humor, and self-poverty. Wait. Okay, I get, using pot. I get using drugs like cocaine and all that during that time because it was considered a taboo. Still is considered a taboo today, but people know what cocaine does to you. Back then, it was like a thrill if you did it. Still today, it makes no sense. But okay, I could get behind the relaxed attitude to life, like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, that type of humor. I understand that. But self-inflicted poverty. Why, in all that is good on this green earth, want to self-inflict yourself in poverty? Why would you self-inflict yourself in poverty? That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. Okay? Now, would I be a quote-unquote hipster in this sense in the 1940s? Yes, except inflicted poverty. Except for the self-inflicted poverty. No, I want to have a good job. I want to have a sustainable house that I could live in without living either in the streets or in very low rent places. Just me, anyway. In their philosophy, people that were hipsters were hip, and anyone who wasn't hip was square. Squares sought security, comfort, valued possessions and status, and accepted the ruling of the government without protest. Everything that hipsters rallied against, being and that you sought a deeper takeaway from life, valuing the artistic and obscure rather than normalcy and what was embraced by general public. Okay. Security, comfort, possessions, statuses are something that, hipsters also seek out too. Where does hipster comfort come from? Simply, it comes from being around people like-minded. Possessions, jazz instruments, microphones, clubs. Those are valuable possessions, right? Statuses. Hipster is a status, right? Security. This actually goes with comfort, but you get the point, right? Why would they think only squares would go for that? That makes no sense. Now, I could definitely see hipsters going to go against the government. I could definitely see that. This is when libertarianism really started to get recognized more, especially by the hipsters of the time, it looks like. Because when you protest against the government, that was really more of a libertarian thing, because even progressives during the time in the government, even those who voted for FDR. So that's surprisingly a very libertarian thing hipsters did back then. Wow. Norman Mailer described the American hipster in the 1940s very eloquently as someone who would not be strangled by social conformity and instead would divorce from society to exist without roots, to set out on that uncharted journey into the rebellious imperatives of the self. Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. If you have no idea who Norman Mailer is, he's an author. Now, it's true. His early work much better than his later work. But he must have been a hipster himself, because he describes it so perfectly. He describes the hipsters perfectly. He became a conservative later on in life, which is not a problem on his hand, because a lot of the 40s hipsters later up become conservatives in the 70s, because by the time the hipsters of the 40s became adults and had children, they according to their era and their generation, they seen the era of their ways, and then they became more conservative over time. Happens to all generations. All the millennials that say they're liberals now, conservative by the time at least you're 30 or 40 years old. Trust me. The modern hipster. Over the years, the word hipster has adapted a completely different meaning. The hipster of the 1940s sought out people similar to themselves, growing friendships and developing bonds based on their mutual interest in jazz music, like views on societal issues. Okay, I have no problem with being called a 40s hipster, because that sounds like me in general. But I do like to reach out and talk to people of different political affiliations too, not just people of libertarian affiliations. They gladly associated themselves with the subculture. A new generation of urban living young people have unwillingly adopted the subculture's name, and today's hipster culture is less about community building and more focused on their individual image. So I can relate to the hipster term in the true aspect, which is, seeking out people who are similar to them, growing friendships and developing bonds based on their mutual interest in jazz music, and like views on societal issues. That I could relate to the term hipster in its traditional sense. But when you take a term like hipster and you bring it to focus on image, meaning their single individual person, that goes from a subculture to a narcissistic point of view. It goes to narcissism. That's exactly what it's become. Well, that's what the quote-unquote subculture has become, a narcissistic culture. A new generation of, let me repeat that again. And maybe you'll maybe you'll see what I mean. A new generation of urban living young people have unwillingly adopted the subculture's name, and today's hipsters culture is less about the community building. So forget the community building, forget building a community of friends, and more focused on their individual image, meaning themselves. Meaning themselves. That's narcissistic. That is very narcissistic. So they don't deserve the term hipster. They don't deserve the term hipster. People that follow the traditional image, the traditional definition, deserve the image of hipster, not the people who seek out their individual image. Just my opinion. Similarly, in earlier hipsters, modern day hipsters are not necessarily from lower classes, but choose to look like they do, keeping an earthly, grungy image. Okay. Okay, I have no problem with that. They embrace anything obscure and appreciate any kind of alternative culture, be it in film, music, or art. Okay, I could get behind graffiti. Like, I don't know why people call graffiti vandalism, because in my opinion, it is it's a very underappreciated art, in my opinion, because to take a can of spray paint, and make some of the most amazing art out of it. To me, graffiti is a alternative culture when it comes to art. And I really do appreciate graffiti. If you live in New York or New Jersey, you probably see, or even if you live in California and there's like some type of subway system in California, if there is, I don't know. But if you really pay attention, like on buildings, especially since you get an eagle eye view, you can see the graffiti that people work on at nighttime, of course, because you can't do it during the day, you'll get caught by a cop. But yeah, people, regardless of race, whether it be white, black, Hispanic, you name it, partake in graffiti because the art that they do, and it is art. I'm not using that word loosely. Graffiti is underappreciated art. And I seriously, I know how beautiful graffiti can really be. I highly suggest looking up on Google graffiti. Look at graffiti art. You'll see pictures from all suburban and urban communities, and you'll see this amazing talent that a lot of people have that they could do with just a fucking can of spray paint. Spray paint, of all things, a can of spray paint. That's quite incredible. Anyway, alternative film, I could get behind that. Alternative music, once again, alternative in the music term is very subjective because I said before in this broadcast, what starts off as alternative always ends up becoming mainstream. And let's face it, what happens when music gets to mainstream? Oh yeah, it becomes synchronized, it becomes automatic. Oh, what happens overnight, blah blah blah, and all that. And it becomes a one-hit wonder essentially. So alternative is very subjective in this case, and especially when it comes to film too, because you could have a very great film style and it could be incredible, really. It could be incredible film style. And but then once that film style becomes mainstream, what happens? It normally ends up becoming controlled by the corporations, like Sony Pictures in this case, and it just becomes a pile of garbage. I mean, let's look at CGI. What's the first film that really used CGI? Jurassic Park. Before that, Star Wars. Now, Star Wars was a film released by an independent film company, Lucasfilm, and distributed by Paramount in the 1970s too. So it did have a corporation behind it, but Paramount let Lucasfilm do what it had to do. And they used CGI for the warp speed in the film. They used CGI for that. And then CGI became, once again, important when it came to Jurassic Park. Loosely, because not every location in Jurassic Park, the original film, if you really pay attention, was all set stages. Some of it was CGI, especially when they just get on the field to Jurassic Park. The field itself is green. The dinosaurs are real, but the background, like the blue sky and the clouds in it, that's CGI. But it's very good CGI. It isn't, comically used CGI. But once CGI became mainstream after Jurassic Park, what happened? It went to shit. Look at all the Transformers film out there, right? All the Transformers films use this Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay CGI, and what happened with it? It's garbage now. Nobody wants to use CGI anymore. People want to go to all practical effects, even if the backgrounds are horrible, like they were in the original Fantastic Four movie that came out in the 1970s. People don't care anymore. Give them a shitty background, but give them practical effects, and then that will pay for the shitty background, if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, that's I could go into more of a rant on that in another video. A stereotypical hipster. A stereotypical hipster are the 20-somethings living in a hackney that buy secondhand clothes, signaling their rejection for consumerism. That makes no sense. If you're buying from a thrift store, yes, you are buying secondhand, but yes, you are, on a technicality, still part of consumerism. So, what's a hackney anyway? I have no idea. Let me look what this means. I genuinely have no idea. What's the definition? I have no idea. There has to be more than that. So I'm saying that hipsters live in a horse. Wrong usage of language. Hackney is not the right word. Hackney is defined as a horse or pony of a light breed. So they live in the horse. Hello? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay, so anyway, just taking this comical moment right here. So they said living in a hackney, which the definition for hackney is a horse or pony. So hipsters, note this, hipsters live in horses. They live in horse and buggy stages. They don't do their weekly food shopping in Tesco. What's Tesco? I have no idea. Instead, they buy their groceries directly from the producers at farmers markets. Most people are buying fresh now, so it's not just hipsters. These retro bicycles with their oversized basket regularly. What retro bikes? Oh, you gotta be. Wait a minute. I think I know what they're talking about. Retro bikes with baskets. I think I know what they're talking about. Hold on. I think I definitely know what they're talking about. Oh, what that? This. Yeah, I knew it. Talking about retro bike with an oversized basket. Yep. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like the style. I could see it being very useful if you live in a small village in Italy or a small village in New York. I could see it being very useful. But modern day hipsters, why don't you just get a Prius? It's a battery powered car. You still have the same amount of storage you do in the basket in the trunk. And it runs on battery. It runs on very minimal gas. So you are driving an eco-friendly car. But look, if you live in a big city like New York or Los Angeles or Portland or wherever the hell you guys live, I don't know where hipsters live. Thing though, this is kind of embarrassing to get around in, just saying. It's kind of an embarrassing way of getting around. Unless you live in a very, very small village and you need to go for like 2-3 things, fine. But, other than that, to use to get around. That probably belongs to a hipster, as cycling instead of driving or using public transportation is a much greener option. Okay, hipsters, I already said you could drive. You could get a Prius. A Prius is simply a car that runs on battery power. Look, I get you don't want to use public transportation. I don't either, because I'm not a germaphobe, but when I'm on the bus, I get very, what's the word I'm looking for? Worried that I might catch a disease or something on the bus. But you could get a Prius. It's a very green car, really, and it runs on very minimal gas. Negative image. Somewhere along the line, the word hipster obtained a negative connotation. Hipster bashing has become a thing, and it's largely to do with the image the media portrays these alternative individuals as. There should be a semicolon. The consensus is that hipsters are pretentious and judgmental to the rest of society. Well, the hipsters that define themselves as hipsters of the 1940s, which want to build a community and all that, they're not pretentious. They're the true definition of hipster is someone who wants to build a community and build bonds based on mutual likings to jazz music, whatever. In this case, jazz music could be subjective. It could be alternative rock, whatever. if you want to build a community and build bonds with people who are similar minded or somewhat different from you, and you want to build friendships based on similar mutual likings of films, whatever, fine, you're not a pretentious hipster. But if you are a hipster that says, wow, I gotta go to a thrift shop and get most outlandish vintage clothing, and then Instagram it myself wearing it, yeah, you're judgmental and pretentious at that point. You really are at that point. You are really pretentious if it's all about you and it's not about anybody else. I would say the correct word would be more narcissistic than anything. Their fashion sense is constructed to look like they don't care about their image when that's all they care about. That's exactly all they care about. I feel hipsters are hard done by. In my opinion, there are two types of hipster. Type 1. Okay, I before I read this, I just want to say hipster type 1 and hipster type 2 sound like hipster is diabetes. Just saying. Hipster type 1, the real ones, which have values and beliefs that led them to live more sustainable lives. The real hipster buys secondhand clothes for economic reasons. They source their food more carefully because they care about fair trade. Their interest in alternative culture means that they listen to less well-known bands or artists. Their creativity shows in their fashion sense, that in the way they bring out old-fashioned practices into modern day. These people are not trying to be cool, they just are. Okay, what's type 2? The deliberate hipster. These people that see people living alternative lives and want to emulate them. They try too hard, and this is where the negative image of pretentious knows-it-alls comes from. They listen to bands that no one else heard of and scoff at anyone who says that Rihanna is their favorite artist. They own while bashing large corporations. They scorn other subcultures for being unoriginal and following trends. Oh, the irony. What drives them? This image is not sustainably and creativity, and these people have turned the hipster movement into a trend. Yeah, see, this is the type of person who does not deserve the term hipster because they do not fit the 1940s hipster description, which is pretty much here. And I would really, I think I would fit into this category, but my politics are different. But, well, while I do fit more with hipster type 1, I think at this point, does it really matter if you have a phone? Does it really matter? I mean, does it matter which phone you have, whether it be an Android, an iPhone, whatever? Does it really fucking matter what phone you have? Does it really matter? Look, I don't like Rihanna. I don't like a lot of modern day music, but I don't certainly bash people for having taste in that. Look, to each his own, not my favorite. Rihanna and that music means nothing to me. I have no personal connection with it. But, if people like it, to each his own. It doesn't, ruin my day. You could bash corporations while having an iPhone or an Android, whatever. I don't see anything wrong with that. But, I really do identify with this type of hipster instead of this one. But I don't really call myself a hipster. No, I have nothing against either type of hipster. People can express themselves however they want and wear whatever they want, they feel comfortable in. These are just the two stereotypical ends of the hipster spectrum. Yeah, I agree with, this person's sentiment here. I have nothing against the either type of hipster, even though I definitely do think I am hipster type 1, really. I don't know. Let's continue on. Hipster style 101. Whatever your opinion of the hipster culture, I think we all agree on their style has massively influenced what we see in high street stores. Love it or hate it, it's everywhere. As hipsters are not slaves to fashion or trends, dress the same, but they are certainly some common identifiable articles of hipster clothing. The hipster wardrobe begins with thick rimmed glasses. Usually people who wear glasses to see properly, if you have 20/20 vision. But if you have 20/20 vision, don't worry, you could get an up here. Okay, so I have rimmed glasses, black rimmed glasses, and I have black rimmed sunglasses right now. Okay, so well, I don't look like this guy, but I do have black glasses. They're smaller, but they're all black. That's the male hipster, right? Yeah. Female hipsters take on slightly androgynous look by pairing any kind of black boots, the thicker / higher platform, the better, with jeans and a loose-fitting slogan T-shirt that belongs to their dad. That belonged to their dad in the 80s, while having perfectly applied makeup and long wavy hair that definitely took time than anyone would care to admit. She's pretty attractive, though. Run DMC, Jesus Christ. Probably the most obvious sign of a male hipster or hipster wannabe is the facial hair situation. Everyone has noticed the influx of beards in recent times. Just hipster style is to thank for making it acceptable for young men to grow, or at least try to grow, full beards, which we would have typically have associated with older men. These beards come in different lengths and different styles, and all that we know, but all are well maintained to deceptively achieve the rough appearance. Some hardcore hipsters even incorporate the handlebar mustache, which requires extra styling and maintenance. After paying a lot of attention to their facial hair, you could forgive the hipster guy for being lazy in their hair on their head. But lazy, they are not. Short and round the sides, and the top slick back, so ever careful. Regular trips to the barber are required to keep you looking in the peak hipster condition. Anything vintage, tartan paint, whatever, will go down well with the hipster community. So what's considered hipster? Okay, I do have sunglasses like that on now. I do have a plaid shirt like that. I don't skateboard, but I do have a bass guitar. Shit, I do have a scarf similar like that. What else? I don't smoke. That's for sure. I do have a jean jacket somewhere. Okay. Oh, I do like to wear ties. Conclusion, an umbrella term used to describe a subculture of young urban living creative personalities. The common theme between the 1940s hipster and the urban hipster and many other subcultures throughout the eras is that though their image may not fashionable, their rejection of mainstream values of their time is where the image stemmed from. In the 40s, hipster rejected the prim and proper lifestyles of the upper class instead of adopting a more open-minded way of life. Okay. Whereas the modern-day hipsters rejecting the contemporary culture of the and constant constant obstacle. Wait. Obels obsolescence and absolutism, I have no idea. Opting for a more eco-friendly, less wasteful lifestyle. Their style wasn't meant to become a trend, but most of us mainstream folks for wanting to look edgy. Okay, so I would say I'm more of a 1940s hipster than anything. Interesting. Anyway, but I guess I'm more of a 1940s hipster than anything. I mean, when these are my prescription sunglasses. You see me. You see me wear these before, right? Oh, that's so much better. But yeah, basically, I'm a 1940s hipster, really. But once again, I think that culture pretty much is gone. So I guess I'm a 1940s hipster by name, but honestly, though, about something, aren't we all a little bit of a hipster, really? Isn't there something in the mainstream, at least one or two things that we don't like? So everyone's a hipster in their own way. It's not one specific subculture that has it, really. Not one specific subculture. Because don't forget, when there's a subculture, there's another subculture within the subculture, right? So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you're interested in the article, it's linked in the description box down below. And hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya.